My entrepreneurial story, studying wealth management, studying other wealthy families, and people that had family businesses. The second generation, the third generation, scared me. Those families, a lot of those guys were struggling with who they were and their identity, and their dad said, "You're going to be the next CEO," and yet he never would get out of the way. And so there were 40 and 50-year-old men that had really never felt like they meant anything, and they were dressing up, and they had the last name, but they had an empty suit, and it wasn't all their fault. But that scared me to death, and it fortunately scared my dad to death.
Pete, thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, Lloyd and I think a lot of you personally, and it's good to be your friend. And welcome to the 100X podcast.
It's great to be here, guys.
Thank you for doing this today. I think it's always helpful if you'll just start by giving a brief context of your life, where you grew up, some things, foundationally through your family that had an impact on you. And if you could just kind of walk us through a little background on your family.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm 56 years old, about to be 57. I've got one grandbaby, 2 years old, and one on the way next month. And I've got three daughters, 28, 25, and 22. And a wonderful wife that I've been married to for 30 years, Rainey. And just stop right there and just say, there's two things that, and I think I heard it the other day on somebody up in Washington, but Jesus and Rainey have been the two key things in my life. Of course, Jesus first, but fortunately he blessed me with a great wife. And we live in Fort Worth, Texas. I am the only son. I have three sisters, but my dad he's 85 years old, still alive, an amazing CEO, a guy that came from nothing and rolled up his industry, did very well. And he started the company 2 years before I was born. And so, I pretty much was raised my whole life to be a family business successor. And because of that, and I think it was more that my mom was so overwhelmed, she would say, "You take Pete, I'll take the girls." But I've just been fortunate to have been his son, and he took me everywhere. I've been in business meetings since I should have been. I'd be sleeping in the corner, but I saw how he started them, and I saw how he ended them when I was really young. But literally from that day on, I've been in meetings. And so raised to be in business, and if we weren't in business, we were playing golf and hunting, and just had an amazing dad. I also had an amazing mother. She was an East Texas woman. My dad was from all brothers, and I say all this because I'll wrap it up in a minute, but he was from all boys, all male, German mother, just hard charge, typical G1 guy. Everything he made, he probably has the first penny he made. And he's a generous man in the kingdom, but he ran a tight ship, and we felt it. My mom was from all girls, and it was the most beautiful four sisters from Tyler, Texas, and she was a Tyler Rose Queen, and just typical beautiful Texas girl, sweet. And those two came together, and my gosh, have they accomplished a lot. But in the interim, there were some moments that we all have inside of the house that I was just, I loved my dad, who's my idol, and loved my mom. She was the sweetest thing, and she taught me what a faith-based woman feels like and expects from a husband. And man, I was caught in the middle of that tornado at times, but I'm so thankful for it because it was an education, and I'm so proud of them together. Lloyd and I, and you, Micah, are in 100X, and how do you finish well? And what a blessing to see them committed to their God and their covenant with God, and they're going to die married together. And I'm just loving watching. I'm sitting here with four generations. My parents are still alive. My wife's parents are both still alive, and yet I have grandbabies. And to be so fortunate to have met Bob Buford and Lloyd in the '90s, and to just start looking at finishing well and aging, and how do you transition from first half to second half. I've been doing that since my 20s. To be 57 and still watching and still in awe and taking notes. But fortunately, Lloyd and I have an exercise that we say, well, who are three men that are finishing well, and who are three that aren't? Um, and there have been some times where you want to throw your parents on that knot. But I am so fired up that they are on what they're doing well. They're on the list. My dad is on the list. He's a caretaker for my mom, and to see a hard charging CEO finish loving and caring for his wife is a true blessing. But real quick on my entrepreneurial story, studying wealth management, studying other wealthy families, and people that had family businesses. The second generation, the third generation, scared me. Those families, a lot of those guys were struggling with who they were and their identity, and their dad said, "You're going to be the next CEO," and yet he never would get out of the way. And so there were 40 and 50-year-old men that had really never felt like they meant anything, and they were dressing up, and they had the last name, but they had an empty suit, and it wasn't all their fault. But that scared me to death, and it fortunately scared my dad to death. And so we decided we didn't want to work together when we sold our family business. And I went and bought a jewelry company in 1997, and it was the Gold Watch Company, and it was based in Fort Worth, Texas. It was a 100-year-old company, and that was 1997. And I don't know anything about jewelry, and it sure wasn't the kind of jewelry that my wife was excited about. But they were making jewelry for employee recognition. So they were in the business of helping managers thank their people for doing a good job, or for the simple fact of being with the company, tenure-based recognition, service award programs. I bought the company because of that, what they were doing, not because of the jewelry. And the long story short, in 20 years, it was a software company, and we were managing large global companies, non-cash based employee recognition, reward, incentive, positive reinforcement, everything from wellness programs to safety award programs to sales to just manager on the spot type programs. And our technology was running companies like Southwest, American Airlines, some of the largest oil companies all around the world. And somehow Forrest Gump made it. So that was my career. I spent 20 years doing it. I sold it to a French public company in 2017. And my dad, at that age, he had started a family office in the 90s. And so he stepped out. He said, "It's yours." And so I manage a family office now. I stepped out in 2017. I took my winnings, which was a blessing, that I could bring it to a portfolio like our family limited partnership. Put my winnings in there. My dad handed me the general partnership, and I served 20 family members, a majority of his descendants. But I have three sisters, and I have 10 nephews, nieces, and my daughters of that generation, G3 and now G4, that I manage their piggy bank and manage all the complexities around educating them on that, and all the good, bads, and uglies of wealth, which it is a blessing, but it's a curse as well. And while we've not been perfect, it's pretty cool that I get the chance to serve 20 people that are family members, with the investment office that I run. So, in a nutshell, that's my world.
Pete, can you talk about how in your 20s, most people that go through the halftime program in their 50s and 60s, what kind of scared you at that point in your 20s to say, "Oh man,
Yeah,
I'm worried about," because you were in your first third of the game really at that point, or
yeah.
maybe a quarter of the game.
So, my dad is my best friend, and if I critique him, it's iron sharpening iron. We are best friends, and I don't think he would argue with what I said. But I was so scared about if that was Christian success, what my parents were experiencing and what my home was experiencing. I was questioning whether I was in on that. My mom could not understand my dad being gone, and my dad being an all man type guy. He wasn't the best communicator, and he would come in and just lay the law, and it would just crush the female side of our family. And I'm just watching the movie going, whoa, whoa, whoa. And while he was the most admired man I saw in the marketplace, it wasn't, there wasn't a lot of that at home. And I spent many a days just trying to help him communicate. I became a communicator, I think, out of necessity to try to triangulate between my parents. But I became fascinated with, here's my idol and here's the businessman that I hear nothing good things about. But how does it match up with this lovely, faithful based woman at home? She wasn't all right in her accusations of what he was doing as far as being gone all the time and never, never, never being a dad. But I was getting those messages. So I was on a journey of saying, how do you win? How do you win with God? And I learned that this came to me. I don't know if it was through Tiger Woods as being he was the first guy to kind of be the best driver, the best iron green hitter, the best putter. They said you can do it all. And I think it was something around that. I remember it. And I just said, well, how do you win with God? How do you win in a marketplace? Well, first of all, how do you win with God? How do you win with your wife when you spend the majority of your day fighting the fight of the marketplace and your competitors that want to cut your throat, and yet you can't go to work and win second and have all this wonderful life balance and all these la things when your competitors are just trying to kill you, and yet you've got 50 employees to 100 employees, whatever it is, 1,000 employees that you're serving, and you're trying to keep food on their plate. How do you do that? And then how do you stay, somewhat healthy, and not be fatter than a hog because you're traveling and eating and grinding and stressing? And so how do you stay somewhat healthy, and how do you have a few friends? I don't know how you get all that done in a day. And that was the quest I was on. And I literally was at a low point in my life. And I had some serious low points, from suicide to just pure questioning, what is all this about? And someone told me, my dad was in YPO, and someone told me about this guy in Dallas. His name was Bob Buford, and he's started some deal and written some book about what you're asking. My mom was from Tyler. Bob was from Tyler. So I could draw enough strings and connections that he would answer my phone. And sure enough, he did. And he just took me under his wing, and I started learning about this halftime thing. And I said, well, here I am. I just bought my company. Here I am. Am I going to be another casualty that Lloyd and Bob have to rework, retool, get all their past pains out of the way? And or is there a way to do this right in the first half where you don't have this huge second half uh, repair job? And I said, Lord, a lot of these guys, by the way, that were coming to halftime, they had made the 100, let's just say 100 on the test. It's not 100 million, but we'll use that term as well. They made their 100 million, but their broken marriages and their broken relationships with their kids, they ended up with 50 because their wife took half, and when she handed them the papers, and then they have all these broken relationships. And I was like, well, God, that's not success either. So I just kind of set out and said, Lord, if you were to bless me with 50, and I'm standing there with my wife, and as Bob and Lloyd have talked about, holding your wife's hand, that's the finishing well. If I could hold Rainey's hand with 50 and have a relationship with my children and live an okay life, I'm good with that. And I figured he'd job me and give me 25, and Rainey would kind of love me. But in 20 years, he gave me the 100, and I'm holding Rainey's hand, and I've got 3 wonderful daughters, and he wants to bless you. I didn't do it perfectly, but when I sold that company, I said, I'm going to spend the rest of my life telling young guys that there's no need to wait till you're successful to have Lloyd retool your life. Do it now, and the results are in God's hands. And he happened to bless me. It's not a promise. He's going to bless us, but whether you end up with the full reward of what you think your company's worth, I can't attest to that. He just did it for me, and that's why I'm sitting here on this podcast.
Can you talk about, I mean, you've talked to me personally about this a lot, but can you talk a little bit about how, when you were in the busy season of young kids, marriage, building a company, how did you balance, there's no such thing as perfect balance, but how did you keep your priorities in order and reshift them along the way?
I think it was one of the simple things that Lloyd taught me, and that is, have you asked your wife? Have you had that conversation? I think the most memorable one I had, which was very early in our kids' life and very early in my company's life, I just couldn't get my work done by the time it was time for dinner. But when we got married, we said, we're going to have family dinners. And I was not going to bust that because that was one of the key things that I was trying to do differently than my family. And but I just couldn't figure it out. And he said, well, I think it was Lloyd, but I read in his partnership book or something. It was like, well, go have that conversation. And I went home and I said, honey, I'm struggling. Um, my competitors and employees are all beating me up, and it's hard to get home at 5:45 for dinner with the little kiddos. And she said, I said, so what do we do about that? Because I know you want me to be successful in the company. I mean, I know you want to have a little nicer furniture than we have. I mean, I'm just struggling with all these stresses. And she said, well, how about this? You come home for dinner, and if you want to go back after dinner to work, I'm good with that. But I want our family to be seen, and I want our kids to hear our prayers at dinner, and I want our kids to hold hands at that prayer and have that dinner. And if you'll help me do the dishes, you can go work as much as you want. And I was like, well, golly, awesome. And that's what I did. And for whatever season that was, but that's my best example, is just like, go give your wife the opportunity to probably give you a better answer than you have for yourself. And it comes from her, then you're really free to run. Your wife wants you to run. She wants you to win, but at what cost? And that's where you have those conversations. I use that one as an example, but we've had many since then and still have them. That's how you win.
Can you talk a little bit about how you're managing the family aspect of running the family office? Is that presented any challenges for you as the only son with
Yeah.
a couple sisters?
Yeah, for sure. Multiple. I'll first start with Rainey. I serve my family, and when I was negotiating literally with my parents and what they were willing, the second generation management is not theirs. And so there was a lot of negotiating, a lot of tough talks about what my role is here, and, compensation, all the hard things for family members to have. It was sucking the wind out of me. And Rainey pulled me over and said, hey, remember, you got this family too. Don't spend all your energy for your whole life for your family. Remember, you got this one. And that hit me between the eyes. And so reprioritizing that, and sure, there's days I fail, but that's very important. With my sisters and my mother, um, it's just been a blessing. I think my transparency, my communication, my service to them, I hope, and if they were to see this, I hope they would chime in and say, that's right. But winning their trust and them signing over the general partnership to me is the biggest thing that I could feel from them, as trust. I mean, that they're signing over their control of their capital to their brother and to their son. And my dad obviously was willing to do it. But so that doesn't just happen right at that moment. That just happens over years and years of how do you love your family member. And we're all different, and we have our failures and our sins and our stories. And I've just loved my family. I think God just called me to love my family, and I love each and every one of those 20. And I'm daily working on how do I love my wife and my family the proper way and the proper priority. And yet my job is to love on the other 20. And that sounds easy, but it can be complicated. But fortunately, it's gone well, and I think the reason why is transparency and trust, and giving them the autonomy and the education to make their own decisions on their wealth, which includes if they want to go away with it, they can go away with it. That's sometimes easier to do as a G2 than a G1, but that's been the key to my success with them so far.
Can you talk about how one of the things you've taught me is like you have to carry the water for your wife. You're like I'm Randy's water boy. Can you talk
Yeah.
about that?
Yeah, I mean it's just again, sometimes the water boy has to be reminded, like I just told you last night, she's texting me from 2 feet away to do the dishes. Our nature is to be tired from a day's work and sit on the couch, and their job is to feed us and do their thing. I was at a cattle working weekend, and this cowboy was giving his testimony and talking about how he's struggled in his marriage, and somebody, the counselor said, well, do you know her love languages? And he said, love languages, I mean, like, I only know one love language, and he said, that's, I just wish it was more physical. And so anyway, someone educated him on the love language, and he learned acts of service was key to her. And anyway, he said that brought me all the physical I could ever want. He said, I started doing the dishes and it changed my life. A man, Joe White from Kanakuk Camp, I'm the type of guy that says, give me the top three, man. I've just had this first kid. What do I do? He said, be your wife's water boy. And while she is handling the heavy lifting, what are you doing to, when she walks back in the kitchen, that she feels like a load is taken off her shoulders? And that was take out the trash, do the dishes, whatever it may be. I wasn't perfect on that, but it was looking for opportunities to take the load off your wife, because we all know they're better at those moments with those kids at night when the stress is high and the chaos is high. And we need to find ways to lighten the load for our wives. And that was the key for me. That was the water boy.
And Pete, you spend part of your time now managing the family office investments, and you've got a great team of really talented guys and gals.
Yep.
And then some of your time is spent nurturing, mentoring younger guys. Some of your time has been spent with Rainey, teaming up to build one of the best schools for disadvantaged kids in Fort Worth. And they just opened their doors on a brand new school, which the video is attached to this podcast. And then you and I built the 100X Forum together to serve people just like Pete Chambers that don't, want the wealth to ruin their family, and they want to be the soil that produces 100-fold. So yet your mission statement brings the same skill set. You have this street smart that I don't have, and I might have spent many, many hours coaching guys and writing about it and doing talks. And you have something that I always watch is like magical. It's like it's just street smart. It's just insight. So talk about your mission statement, and then make the school thing come alive a little bit for how you did that over the last decade.
Yeah. Lloyd has actually this year worked on challenging me a little bit on my mission statement. It's to bring well-informed guidance to high-capacity leaders in thriving organizations by helping them prioritize their lives and achieve excellence. Before that, it was to serve high-capacity leaders in thriving organizations, period. I just kind of left it blank. But I just believe that, and this is what halftime teaches you, that Moses's first 40 years were prepping him for the next 40. And that just sunk in with me. And I am living out, I'm watching God do it. I hope I'm making good choices. So don't hear this as I've got it all figured out and I'm doing it perfectly. But I am watching that everything I did in business, I'm doing in ministry. Everything I learned as a CEO and owner of a business for 20 years prepared me to sit in rooms with Lloyd and the 100X guys that are coming through. I've spent 25 plus years in very intense YPO forum meetings, which are which are built around high capacity leaders opening their hearts for the first time. Many of them obviously don't go to church. Some of them do. Some of them, it doesn't matter. It's a small group protocol that has taught me how to peer into a guy that is guarded because the world is against him. The challenges that he has in business and the challenge he has at home and all these things that he ends up guarding, and he feels like the only way he can get free is to go on a guy's trip. And I'm just, you think you'd learn that at church, but I learned it in YPO. And then to throw the wonderful solution of the saving grace of Jesus and the love of God into the program is just something I enjoy doing with Lloyd. But I Lloyd, the school, it's for Fort Worth, Texas. It's for a 1 square mile of under-resourced children. Right now, we have 105 kids. We just built a building for 240. It's brand new. It's the best. The mayor was at the opening a few nights ago. And a week before that, she was at the richest private school in Fort Worth. They just opened their elementary school. And she said in our meeting or our opening that she wanted that community to know that she just saw a building at the richest white school, and this school had everything that one had. And that was the goal, to give this community what we had and what we have, and focus on these children and give the staff and the kids a place to achieve excellence. And it's just awesome. But that school, is my local, I feel like it's my impact venture capital Series A founder experience in nonprofit. While I've been around Halftime my whole life, I now have practiced. I've gotten to experience what we're encouraging all these men in 100X to do. I've spent 8 years learning, and doing what we're encouraging other men to do. And that is take your gifts, take your time, talent, and treasure, and do something for someone else. Do something that God's leading you to do that you can just do in your sleep almost, because you're trained for it and you know the right people and you have the right resources. And I've gotten to experience that here at this school. And I don't know what God does with it. I don't know if I do a bigger school next time or this is my only hoorah, but that's my school experience. What I'm doing with Lloyd at 100X is what I've been doing in YPO forums for over 25 years. It's just, we get to give, but at YPO, you just listen and you say, well, my experience is this, and I hope that helps you. With Lloyd, we actually can provide them substance and meat and content and stories of other people doing the same thing, and they're from peers. It's a great peer level. And I just love helping facilitate that transition from someone focused on only their empire, only their family, to how they can take that and make a real joyful effort into impacting their community, whether it be local or global, whatever God's called them to do. And I just have a blast doing it. It fits in, my family office is a platform. God, Lloyd and I often talk about, and Michael, we were just talking about our businesses, our investment offices, whatever it may be, if they can be used for good, not just by writing checks, but to be a platform, a place to facilitate, a place to give you credibility for when you're going out to raise money or do whatever. It's just, it's awesome how God uses marketplace, the marketplace and businesses to do his good work. And that's what I'm practicing. It's what I've learned in Halftime. And so I never want to be able to talk to groups, and it's never something I've done myself. And God's just provided me the opportunity through this school to have a real, high impact, high hands-on experience, as well as things like what we're doing at 100X. But, I love being a part of ministries that I just write a check and give them a hug and say, keep the good work. That's a wonderful thing too. But these two experiences are something I get to roll my sleeves up and and make a choice to go do. We talk about, are we going to go to the country club? We're going to go, just do fun things because we get invited to do a lot of things. It's a choice. And I would just encourage each of you watching this podcast, what choices are you making? You can talk the talk, but are you walking the walk? And take one little step at a time. It doesn't have to be big and fast. Successful guys think it's got to be big and massive right away. Just take those small steps and watch the joy come into your life. I believe it will.
Thank you for listening to the 100X podcast. Please subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast service. We would greatly appreciate it if you could rate the show and leave us a review. This podcast is sponsored by Anchor Investments, whose mission is to build America's most generous real estate company. To learn more, please visit anchorinv.com.